it's not too hard to get suspended for a year.
And then we get NFL suspensions because of gambling.
There have already been 7 NFL players this offseason who apparently had to learn their lessons the hard way and are now going to be suspended for the entire 2023 season. Starting off with the latest announcement that the NFL squeezed in before the holiday weekend, the league is suspending 3 more players for at least a full season due to violations of the league's gambling policy. The announcement will have the largest effect on the AFC South, as 2 of the guys named in the release were members of the Indianapolis Colts defense, cornerback Isaiah Rodgers and defensive end Rashad Berry. Hopefully, this can be a learning experience for 2 young players who were members of the 2020 NFL Draft. Indy took Rodgers in the 6th round out of UMass and picked up Berry, who went undrafted out of Ohio State, off the Jaguars practice squad last year. At least Berry was just a practice squad player last year when the transgressions took place. I mean, while he still should have known better, I can see how you can find your way into trouble when you're sort of detached from the rest of the team and the structure of being a traveling NFL player. Rodgers, on the other hand, well, he really screwed the pooch. He was active on the Colts roster, playing in games, and according to ESPN's David Pardum's sources, placed somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 bets, including at least 1 wager on a game that involved his team. Yeah, that is the cardinal sin of all cardinal sins. There is no better way to call the league's integrity into question and dare them to come down with all the wrath and fury of a billion-dollar enterprise than to bet on the game you're playing in. What makes this even more bizarre is that most of the bets were in the range of $25 to $50, so it wasn't even like this was some get-rich-quick scheme. It was just dumb decision-making. Rodgers was quick to take accountability for the transgression once the news went public, releasing a notes app mea culpa on Twitter. "I know I've made mistakes and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to repair the situation," Rodgers wrote. "The last thing I ever wanted to do was be a distraction to the Colts organization, my coaches, and my teammates. I've let people down that I care about. I made an error in judgment and I'm going to work hard to make sure that those mistakes are rectified through this process. It's an honor to play in the NFL and I have never taken that lightly. I am very sorry for all of this." Unfortunately, whatever learning he and Berry will ultimately do will not be as a member of the Indianapolis Colts organization, because shortly after the league came down with its ruling, the team's general manager, Chris Ballard, released a pretty blunt statement. "We have made the following roster moves as a consequence of the determination that these players violated the league's gambling policy," said Ballard in a statement released on the Colts team website. "The integrity of the game is of the utmost importance. As an organization, we will continue to educate our players, coaches, and staff on the policies in place and the significant consequences that may occur with violations." As you might have guessed, the league cut ties with both players, waiving them, which has to be particularly painful for both Rodgers and Berry, 2 guys who fought long and hard to make it to the NFL, only to have it all fall apart because they couldn't comply with the league's gambling policy. And the Colts did not think that they were worth holding on to through the suspension. Not too dissimilar from another undrafted free agent, in this case from the 2022 draft, Demetrius Taylor. The former Appalachian star defensive tackle earned a spot on the Detroit Lions during last year's training camp, and though he was toggled back and forth from the active roster throughout the year, he no doubt was heading into 2023 with larger ambitions than just spending the entire year on the couch. I feel bad for Taylor, who already had been cut in May when the Lions opted to sign an 8-year veteran Christian Covington to their D-line in his stead. I mean, as if getting cut wasn't bad enough, now Taylor is suspended indefinitely and, like Rodgers and Berry, will need a petition for reinstatement at the conclusion of the 2023 season. And even if Taylor can keep his nose clean this offseason and get reinstated, there's no guarantee that he will ever find his way back onto an NFL roster. It's hard enough to have staying power in the NFL. An undrafted guy like Taylor really only needs 1 strike against him for a team to say that it isn't worth giving him a shot. And this is a pretty serious strike to have gotten. Now, Taylor wasn't the only player on the Lions in 2022 to get in trouble for gambling. Jamison Williams, the team's 2022 first-round draft choice, and another Lions receiver, Stanley Berryhill, were given 6-game suspensions for betting from an NFL facility on non-NFL sporting events. And more egregiously, at least in the NFL's eyes, Quintez Cephus and CJ Moore also got pegged with suspensions, in their case, indefinite ones. The distinction was that, unlike Williams and Berryhill, Cephus and Moore made the horrendous this decision to bet not just from an NFL facility, but also on NFL games. Lions general manager Brad Holmes released a statement eerily similar to Ballard's before releasing both Cephas and Moore, who will now need to find a new team in addition to applying for reinstatement at the end of the year. As a result of an NFL investigation, it came into our attention that a few of our players had violated the league's gambling policy, Holmes said. These players exhibited decision-making that is not consistent with the organizational values and violates league rules. We have made the decision to part ways with Quintez and CJ immediately. We are disappointed by the decision-making demonstrated by Stanley and Jameson and will work with both players to ensure they understand the severity of these violations and have clarity on the league rules moving forward. Slightly more spicy than Ballard's more corporate response, especially since they decided to retain two of the players that broke the rules in admittedly less severe fashions, but the ethos remained the same. Gamble on the NFL and you're gonna get suspended and probably released. Unless, of course, you're valuable enough on the field to the organization that they'll let you stick around. Lastly, we have, coincidentally, two defensive ends on different teams who caught suspensions from the league, in this case, for different reasons. From the Washington Commanders, third-year pro Shaka Toney and Amani Bledsoe, a member of the Atlanta Falcons practice squad for the last 2 years who was most recently active with the Titans in 2021. Starting off with the latter, this suspension could sadly be the straw that broke the camel's back for Bledsoe's career. The former Oklahoma Sooner was undrafted in 2019 and after working his way up the Titans practice squad for 2 years, finally had made the NFL roster with the Bengals in 2020, before going back to Tennessee the following year. He wasn't any kind of game breaker, but he did manage to play in 19 games during that time and totaled 18 tackles. That clearly wasn't enough to keep him in the rotation in Tennessee, but there's plenty of reason to believe that Bledsoe could have held on as a practice squad guy for years to come, if not earn another shot at contributing on an active roster. Now, he is but another name on the list of suspension-related career casualties, because, man, it is extremely unlikely that a team will want to even bother with the headache of signing a player who has this kind of black mark on his resume. Toney, on the other hand, well, he, like the rest of the guys on this list, just couldn't get the flashing lights of the casino out of his head and got caught violating the league's gambling policy. Luckily for Toney, who is a 7th-round pick himself and not a bona fide star in the league by any means, he seems to have established himself with the Commanders enough for the team not to immediately release him after the league announced his suspension. Check out what Washington's coach Ron Rivera had to say. "It's unfortunate and a little disappointed for the young man," Rivera said. "I mean, he's a guy that really came on for us last year at the end of the season, and with what's going on, obviously, it's something that he's dealing with on his own with his agent and the league. So for us, we've just got to be able to move forward, and hopefully in a year's time, we'll see what happens." Now, obviously, that is not exactly a ringing endorsement that Toney will be back, but it was far more comforting of a statement than any of the other ones that we've seen after gambling suspensions, which, given the seriousness with which teams are viewing these transgressions, is a little bit surprising, especially when you consider the fact that he totaled just 16 tackles over the last 2 years. But hey, maybe he's shown enough to the organization character-wise, or maybe in practice, that they decided they'll at least wait and see if he's worth keeping around long-term through his potential reinstatement. Hey, good for Toney. Hopefully he can find his way back and one day fight for some playing time again on what will likely still be a very competitive depth chart on the Commanders' D-line. You know, with guys like Montez Sweat and Chase Young leading the pack. But which NFL player are you most surprised got suspended for the entire 2023 season? Do you think the punishment was fair or a bit of an overreaction? And was there anyone that we happened to miss? Let us know in the comment section below. If you like this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps out a ton, and hey, we appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, subscribing is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching and we'll see you guys next time.